How's it going, everyone? This is the George here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Weapons. This is the recent horror movie directed by Zach Krager and it stars Julia Gardner, Josh Brolin, Benedict Wong, Amy Madigan. And in this movie, it takes place in a small town in Pennsylvania, and 17 kids from a third grade class leave in the middle of the night at 2:17 a.m. specifically and have gone missing for over a month. The only ones that are still around are the third grade teacher, who Julia Gardner plays, and this one boy named Alex. And so there's this big mystery in the small town. Some people, specifically the parents of the missing kids, blame the teacher. There's also some suspicious behavior from the one boy who is still around's family. And so a bunch of characters are trying to figure out what's going on, how everything is going, and that's basically this is our horror slash mystery movie. And I do apologize; it's been a while since I've done a review. Just been busy recently, and I only recently got to watch Weapons on Tuesday for the first time. But I had a great time with this movie, and I'm going to share my thoughts about it. Now, before I go more into the movie, I've reviewed horror movies on this channel before. I'm a big horror fan. I also enjoy mystery movies and mystery shows and books as well. I grew up watching mystery cartoons like Scooby Doo. In my teenage years, I grew up watching mystery crime shows like NCIS, Criminal Minds, and a lot of those other CSI crime thriller shows. I also watched the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies as a teenager. Uh, in my college years, that's when I finally got a chance to watch the old Pink Panther movies, which are more lighthearted, comedic, mystery solving movies. But mystery movies, shows, and books have always been something that I've enjoyed. And when you blend in horror and mystery, it could be something very special. There are some horror movies that do have a mystery element to it. Take the Scream franchise, for example. It's a slasher horror movie, but it's also got the mystery element, which is who's behind these murders, who's behind the ghost face mask. And I'll say with this movie, the mystery element is a lot stronger, I feel like, than the horror element because there is this mystery as to what happened to these kids, why only one kid didn't go missing, why specifically at this time did all the kids run out, why they're running out in that specific form. I know people say it's like the Naruto run, the way Naruto and the ninjas run in the Naruto anime and manga. Although I don't think that was the intention by Zach Krager. But why are they running in this specific form? And other questions and mysteries that appear in the movie. What's going on with the boy Alex's family? Why are there newspapers covering the windows of his house? Why are weird happenings going on at his house? There's a lot of questions and a lot of mysteries that are happening in this movie. And some of the characters are trying to get to the bottom of it. As I said before, some people think the teacher was involved in this. And then there's other things that are happening as well, like why this drug addict, homeless, most adult, young adult, is stealing stuff, and how is he tied into this as well? Because this movie, in a similar way to Reservoir Dogs, which I actually recently rewatched, and I noticed it upon rewatch because it's been a while since I've seen that movie. Each there's a chapter in perspective in Weapons for each character. There's the teachers, there's the parent that Josh Brolin plays, there's this police officer that used to be an old boyfriend of the teachers, there's the homeless drug addict character who reminded me of Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. Like if Jay was in a horror movie and he didn't have Silent Bob and he wasn't funny, the perspective of the principal played by Benedict Wong, and then the boy Alex. And each perspective shows like what these characters, how what's going on with them, what they're seeing, what they're going through, how they're figuring out the mystery, and how they will later connect to other characters. And sometimes some things don't get answered right away. For example, minor spoiler, but the movie's been out for a couple of weeks. During the perspective of Josh Brolin's character towards the end of it, when he confronts the teacher. The principal is running and he looks bloodied up in the face. He's doing the same run that the kids are, and he's specifically trying to attack the teacher, which some people find odd because he's one of the few people that's been defending the teacher. And even with Josh Brolin's character trying to stop him from going after the teacher, he's focused on going specifically after the teacher. And you're wondering, when did this happen? A few perspectives later, where we see his perspective and why he's doing this. So I find that very interesting what the movie does. And I will say, even though the mystery element I think is stronger, the horror element is also still strong. More so in the second half, primarily in the third act. Like the first act and the majority of the second act focus more so on the mystery element with those points of horror that are laid out in the movie, which could be in dream sequences that characters have, which I thought were handled very well, or like the few jump scares that do happen that I think were handled well. And some people might feel impatient with that because they went into this movie expecting a full on horror movie, but the mystery element does a really good job of keeping the audience patient because you're still intrigued by this mystery. You're still wondering, well, what happened to these kids, and what's happening in that house of the one boy that did not disappear. Now, as far as the performances go, it's really driven by Julia Garner, Josh Brolin, and Amy Madigan. Julia Gardner, as I said, she plays the teacher, and she's just as confused and lost as everyone else. Like, she comes into class one day, only sees one kid, and is like, what happened to my class? And she's getting blamed for all of this. And later on in the movie, during the perspective of another character, it's revealed that she's had a troubled past. But yet the principal has given her another chance at the school. And we see how she's struggling processing all this between not having a class anymore and being accused of being behind the disappearances of these kids. She has witch drawn on her car. She's getting these calls from unknown callers threatening her. She's just dealing with a lot. She's going to liquor store and buying liquor, trying to comprehend what's happening. She's also having these weird dream sequences, and she notices something off with the one boy that's still around house. So her mystery is figuring out what's going on at that house. Well, you've got Josh Brolin, who does a great job playing the father of one of the missing kids, is solving the mystery of what has happened to his kid and the other kids. And the way he does it, it feels believable. And you understand the motivation. And while you do feel for the teacher for getting blamed, at the same time, you can't really blame Josh Brolin's character and these other parents of being annoyed because everyone's confused. They have no idea what happened to their kids. The fact that the teacher is one of the only people from that class that's still around besides another boy, and the fact that they investigated and checked out that boy's house originally and that he was in the clear, yeah, it's understandable that they would blame an adult that they trusted their kids with during the day for what has happened to their kids. Yes, but over time after a certain event happens, basically I'm talking about the principal just out of nowhere attacking the teacher. Sure, Josh Brolin's character and Julia Garner's character come together and realize that their mysteries are more connected than they realize. Now let me get to Amy Madigan. Sorry if I mispronounced her name in her performance. She plays the aunt of the boy who didn't go missing, Alex. And her performance, I wasn't expecting her to be a scene stealer primarily in the third act, and learning how she's connected in all this. Like, that was just crazy good. Good. And I'll say, like, the movie and how they set this whole thing up to the third act, which, by the way, the ending of this movie is one of the craziest endings to a horror movie. I was not expecting the movie to end that way. But that's not a bad thing. In fact, I think overall this movie was incredible. From the performances to how the horror is handled to how the mystery happens. Like, most movies that have a mystery to them, whether it's a missing person story or who killed who or who stole what, a lot of the times these days you can probably figure out who the suspect is in the first 30 minutes of the movie. But within like the first 30, 45 minutes of the movie, you're still wondering what is going on. You still have no idea who is behind the disappearances of these kids. And by the way, I'll say the way we do find out what happened to these kids, it's in the perspective of a character that you least expect, because where they find the kids, the reason they go to that place, they go there not because they were looking for the kids. It was more so because they were trying to steal something, not realizing what they were going to come across. To me, I actually thought that was a genius way of doing it, because you didn't expect that character to discover it. You don't expect that character to do the right thing until they realize they can have a selfish motivation. But even when they do decide to tell someone where these kids are, it backfires on them. So, overall, with Weapons, this movie I think did everything right. I'll say, even though it's marketed as a horror movie, it's the mystery element that I think is stronger, and that's the element of this movie that I enjoyed more. But Weapons is just another example that horror movies in the 2020s have been really good to great. Like, if there's one genre that has been very strong this half decade so far, I don't know how the rest of the 2020s is going to go, but the one genre that's been very strong has been horror, particularly this past year between Nosferatu to Sinners this past year. And I know Nosferatu came out at the end of 2024, but still, it still feels more recent. The point is that we're getting great horror movies. We started off getting just good ones, whether they felt unique or generic, but the horror genre is improving itself in the 2020s, and hopefully it ends in the next 4 or 5 years strongly. And I didn't expect that as of right now, the year's not over. We still got 4 more months. I didn't expect that my top two favorite movies of the year would be horror movies. That's Sinners, which I think was phenomenal, and now Weapons. We're living in a good time for horror fans. If you're a horror fan, I highly recommend you check this movie out. If you're a mystery fan and you don't mind the gruesome horror aspects of the movie, like, it does get more gruesome and gory as you get closer to the end, especially the third act of the movie. But if you don't mind that stuff and you're just into mystery and you don't mind horror in your mystery movie, then I recommend you check this movie out. But yeah, overall with Weapons, this was an excellent movie. I had a great time with it. I would probably say this is my second favorite movie of the year behind Sinners, even more so than F1 and Superman, two movies that I also loved a lot and are among my favorite movies of 2025. So overall, I'm going to give Weapons an A. I highly recommend you check this movie out, especially if you're a horror fan. To me, this is the perfect movie to get into spooky season right away, because a lot of people like to get into spooky season / Halloween towards the end of August. So, hey, this is a great way to get into the horror feels or horror mood, I would say. But yeah, Weapons. Have you seen it? What you think about it? And what's one of your favorite horror movies to come out in the last couple of years or so? I would probably say Sinners, then Weapons, and then Nosferatu. Let me know in the comments down below. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already if you haven't. Please share this with someone that loves horror movies, that loves mystery movies. It may have an interest in seeing this movie. And I hope to see you guys real soon. Take care, everyone.